Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legacies. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with Cleo's situation inside of Malivore. Obviously, trying to fight against Malivore is pretty hard when he's basically throwing every terrible thing in your life in your direction. So he ends up showing her time and time again of the people she cares about dying. Luckily, Landon shows up in time. This is their first official meeting, getting to meet the person himself after hearing all this about Hope, making that fake Landon, at least helping Hope with the fake Landon, and then Malivore Landon showing up. So it's full blown getting to meet first official real meeting. And so they talk. He's there to kind of help her because obviously given enough time she'll eventually come up with the idea that will help Malivore. So Landon decides hey, let's have it's let's talk about Star Wars, which is what's that? It's well, she wasn't free long enough to go enjoy. I mean, every time she was free it was all plans about trying to stop Malivore and everything, and she was just trying to live a normal life to an extent, but obviously that was all a cover. But yeah, she hasn't had time to indulge into pop culture stuff, which, given the chance, Landon's okay, you've never seen Star Wars, I'll help you out with that. So, which now I've never thought about it. Kind of the character of Landon reminds me of Jacob from Funhouse, just in that because Jacob's such a huge Star Wars fan, and just every chance he gets, he makes a Star Wars reference. So, I mean, that's a whole bit within itself. But regardless, I never really thought about that at the time, but Landon's right, since we can't talk about it, let's talk about something deep. It's oh, that seems uncomfortable. We talk about something honestly, you say something honest, and then I open up about something honest, but it's by focusing on something so big like that, you preoccupy your mind. So it's oh, have you ever been in love? And she's yeah, with Leonardo da Vinci. He's oh, wait, the Leonardo da Vinci? It's yeah, he was just a boy when I met, but he had the kindest eyes. But the problem is, the stronger her love is for someone, the greater of an inspiration she can be to them. And obviously, he became what he became to the world. That's the complicated thing about their love situation. What obviously Landon knows about his complicated love situation of being in love with someone so great, and his love being Hope. And the complicated situation about her being a tribrid. Now, is that better or worse for the world? Because it's not just about being a tribrid, it's about being the tribrid. We're talking about the only person of her kind. That's a very lonely. I mean, that's why Klaus had such resentment in the world. I mean, granted, his father being the only of his kind, that's why he tried to make more tribrids, but that completely got undone. So it's a situation, because being the only one of your kind can make you an outcast in the world. Hope's already felt losing all the people around her she cares about. But that's also the thing of is that for better or for worse? I mean, because who knows? Because we've been just thinking about well, Hope doesn't want to become one. I've been caught up on the fact is that right, you never get to have children, but also that vampiric side, what that'll do to you. It heightens a lot of who you are and can bring out a lot of your worst qualities and amplify them, in fact. So I kind of thought about that, but it is to think of, once again, let's not forget, and even Landon brings it up, she is Klaus's daughter. Klaus is one of the most ruthless killers in history. And yes, he had his issues. He tried to do a lot of redemption, but he was on yes, him and his siblings carved their way through history, but Klaus was the biggest monster of them all. So, and Hope kind of has that potential in her if she ever awakens her vampiric side. It is a thing of you are not only this enhanced vampire, you also have the powers of a witch too. That's the ultimate combination, just the strength of and the healing abilities and the monstrous killing force of a vampire, the humongous strength that comes from being a werewolf as well, and the ferociousness that can ensue, plus having magic on your side. Pretty powerful combination. I mean, those three supernatural groups are powerful enough when they're working together. If they're all working together in one body, how do you stop that? You know, like, this will make Klaus look like child's play. Once again, Klaus eventually came around and started doing good, but it took a long time for that to happen. So who knows what that's going to do to Hope. May transforming into a tribrid might, like, turn her humanity off. And that ends up being a point Hope brings up later on. She's like, I've always thought I'd be willing to do anything for Landon except becoming a tribrid. That's the one thing she doesn't want to do. Like, she's willing to do anything for him, would do anything for him, except for this one thing. And she's almost wondering, like, why? Because I think on some level what Landon's kind of wondering, I think she's thinking too. I think she thinks if she becomes a tribrid, she knows who her dad was. She knows the dark kind of nastiness of just like her dad's past and stuff like that. Because obviously granted, he wasn't able to be there for chunks of her life, but it's like she know who her dad could be, but knowing, like, kind of, because her dad, like, Klaus did everything to try and hide from Hope who and what he really was. But she knows the story. She knows all that Klaus was. So I think she's scared that if she ever becomes a vampire, just like how much people struggle. I mean, she personally knows a Ripper in MG, and it's like, well, that would do, in her case will be even worse because of not just being a vampire, you know, but she's predisposed to be like, her family of vampires ended up being like some of the worst in history. Her father in particular was the worst in history. So I think all that's kind of going through Hope's mind, whether she realizes it or not. Like, she's kind of realizing that maybe her being a tribrid might be the worst thing for the world. So it is kind of like, because maybe she thinks also, like, there will be no, even if she's able to save Landon by becoming a tribrid, that that still would actually doom them even more so than before. Like, yeah, he's Malivor's son, and that was a whole complication, but that it's going to be even worse. She becomes a tribrid, I think, is kind of what she's trying to get across. But back to inside of Malivore, in that moment, Cleo gets inspiration. We don't know what it was, but it was like a tree, and it started bleeding, and it gave... I was about to say, I'm like, I wonder, does that have anything to do with the ash, like the ash daggers that they're not around anymore? I think they're like all gone now, but like the ash daggers that Klaus used to use to, like, they're from that very specific tree, or like the oak from them is what could kill the originals. It could also the daggers were made from them too, so they wouldn't kill, but at least would put them in a slumber. So I'm wondering, does this have something to do with that? Like, is it going to be a point of trying to recreate that tree to some extent, so it would be possible to kill Hope even if she became the tribrid? I wonder if there's something like that inspiring. But Cleo did think of that, and now it's like, no. We need to. She's like, Landon's like, you have to be as far away from me because we can't take the chance. Now that you have the idea, we can't, there's no way I can be around you. And obviously for Cleo, it's the thing of not wanting to be alone. But, you know, Landon assures her that it's going to be okay. That she will kind of find a way out of this. It's going to be tough on her own, but there are doors everywhere in Malivore that lead out, and it's like, you just got to find one. So they had to go their separate ways, but it was nice, you know, meeting Cleo. It's like, nice meeting you, Landon. Hopefully, you know, we'll see each other again, and they have to go their separate ways. Just when they found each other in this place, it's like, no, we can't be around each other. It's too much of a danger to everything and everyone. So on the outside, we learned what Cleo's inspiration was to what her inspiration was to Hope, and it's basically use a braid where she witnessed magic from the first time when they transferred the poison from a warrior who was deadly poison to a warrior who was immune to it. So it's like, yeah, we do the same thing. I initially thought she was trying to suggest, like, putting it in her own body, being, like, the poison. That might ultimately be, well, they're not going to do the transfer spell anymore, but I thought that's what it was initially going to go. But it's like, right, she isn't the tribrid. She, you know, that's why she could hurt him before, because the tribrid blood is there. It's just not fully activated, hence why she could never kill Malivore, even in season 1. But it's like, part of me wonders if, I thought that was kind of where we were going, but it's like, nope, they actually have another host. Actually, Hope brought this plan up and is like, oh, how does everyone feel about it? They're like, what? She's like, yeah, I know I normally, kind of take control of things. And they're like, well, it's like, no, well, okay, I always kind of take control, but there is no I in team, so everyone has to decide whether or not they're down for this plan, and everyone kind of says I. So, Hope trying not to go all gun-ho, but they have the perfect host in Clark, which he's dealing with the fact is, cool, I'm human. And the healthcare system sucks because I owe $83,000. It's like, Jesus, that's the terrible aspect of like, man, human existence, being sick, getting hurt. Luckily, if you're a vampire, you don't have to worry about that. But as a human, you do. I mean, it sucks considering like you were immortal for so long and didn't have to worry about it. Now you do. It's like, So, but he initially doesn't want to help Hope, but Hope's like, you kind of owe me. So this is about stopping your dad and everything, so at least you'll be able to live your human life without having to worry about him over your shoulder. But for Clark, it's like, yeah, he's got a fragile human body now, so he doesn't want to threaten that. But at the end of the day, Hope was like, no, Clark will come through in the end, and ultimately he does. But he wants to get paid, and they're like, wait, you want to get paid? It's like, well, at least he wants to get paid in the sense of, there's like, I got medical bills that need to be paid, and I don't, for one, he's like, in general, I don't like being owing debt, so that's why I'm here. Which, it's like, well, luckily we still got some of that leprechaun gold, and he's like, what? And Lark's like, don't worry about it. It's like, right. I wonder how much of that they're still sitting on. I mean, there was quite a bit, but still. They say they have some left, but probably not a lot, but they haven't probably enough to spare to help pay Clark off, so it is the matter of like, right, let's perform this spell, but every time they run it, it doesn't work out because Hope isn't willing to push too far and too hard because she's scared of hurting Landon's body, so that's why it fails over and over again. But at the very least, Josie offering to take over that position because it's like, right, because every time it's like, she needs to go faster for the spell to kind of go through. She takes her time and just like the spell runs out and it doesn't work out. So it's like, trust me to do this. Because of course, like we all care about Landon and you. So we'd never want to do anything that would hurt you or him. It's like, I would never want to do anything that would kill my best friend's boyfriends. So I'm going to do everything I can. So trust me to handle this. It's like you say like, there's no I in teams. Like, well, it's okay. Take a step back and trust that we'll do this. And that's a complicated thing. Like Hope doesn't want to just sit on the sideline. She feels like she has to do something, and it's also like, because the thing is, for her sitting on the sideline, it's like I'm asking everyone else to take the risk, but she would never ask anyone to do something she's not willing to do herself. So it's like I can't just be sitting on the sideline while everyone else is stressing, which all art confides in her about the whole complication of making the kind of those tough choices, just kind of having to be on the outside sometimes, and how tough that is. It's like, obviously, Alaric's means of dealing with that, once again, not the most healthiest way, but it's bourbon, so. But at the same time, there's the whole situation at the movie thing that Caleb has to put together because they kind of owe it for the football game last year. So, it's a movie thing, and Lizzie's asking out Ethan, and MG is like, skulking a little bit, trying to figure out the whole situation because he's got feeling for Lizzie, and it's sad because he thinks at the end of the day, like, he figured everything would work out, that him and Lizzie would find their way to each other eventually, that they would have their time, but now he's scared about, like, what if Lizzie and Ethan have theirs? And initially, like, she wasn't feeling those sparks. Like, yeah, it's like they have a lot of stuff in common because she's got her list, and it's like, yeah, he knows a little French, but it's like, well, not a lot. Doesn't know how to play guitar, but he is sweet. She does. It's like she has her very like high expectations and stuff like that. So she's not vibing, which even Caleb's like, hey, there's like plenty of fish in the sea, so don't stress about it. Especially because you're here talking about your love life while the person that I care about deeply is inside of Malivore, so they're, kind of stuck in a hell dimension. So, but obviously it's like, MG does bring up that complicated point of like, right, he like stopped Ethan and him from being buddies because he didn't want Ethan getting mixed up in the supernatural world. There are complications there, but also it's like he is also jealous a little bit. It can at least even admit that. But I love that it's like Caleb's like, yeah, come to me about your love life. Apparently everyone else is already. So, but at the end of the day, I thought it was obviously like, because the movie that's playing is King Kong, and it turns out, circling back to Clark's circumstances, it turns out Malivore found out what they were doing, and instead of letting himself be pulled into Clark, one of the creatures inside of him gets pulled in, and that turns him into a hulky monster, like him picking up Lizzie like that. Was like, oh, I was actually expecting us to go full-blown King Kong, since like that's where they were it seemed like that's where they were going, but it didn't fully go with him getting to the top of a clock tower doing like the whole thing. I was like, oh, is this going to end like King Kong 2? Not necessarily, but maybe you could still draw the parallels there. So Caleb went to go rescue Lizzie while MG took care of Ethan, who tried to be a hero, step in from, and protect Lizzie from a bully, kind of got knocked out because of it. Luckily, Hope, who had to stop Alaric from going buck wild, because Alaric was like, oh, I'm going to have to kill Clark if he's going to put anyone in danger, or even kill, potentially hurt my daughters. But Hope is like, I made a promise not to let anyone hurt him, and she takes Alaric out of the equation, which I think because at first I was like, oh, could you make the argument maybe she's doing it for selfish reasons? But it's like, right, they can't do that transfer spell again, especially because Malivore knows what they're up to, and he'd be expecting it again. So it failed once, and they definitely can't try it again, because he'll just put another monster inside of like Clark if they tried again. So it is purely from the sake of, I made a promise to him, and I'm not big into owing debts either, especially to Clark. So ultimately she was able to pull the creature out of him, because the plan was like, yeah, the only way to get that thing out of someone was to initially kill them. So luckily Hope came and saved the day. Big time hero like always. But ultimately, Clark, or rather Ryan as we know it now, they are like, he does get the payment they're owed, and it's like, right, just kind of go live your life, because what is the worst thing that will happen if Malivore is set free? And it's like, he will consume everything, and not just the supernatural. He's got a taste for humans now, and that in itself is our own tragedy, because like, think about, like, he's never going to stop, because he's a bottomless void, like, and it needs to constantly be fed. So he's going to go until there's nothing and no one left, which I think that could lead to like a post-apocalyptic world where it's like, right, people trying to survive against I mean, pretty much what that other pocket dimension looked like when Malivore was in it. It's pretty much like that, just in this world for real. Because it's especially because he's saying, like, I know it's the person that you love, that his body that he's in, but you need to kill Malivore while you had the chance, because you don't want to take the chance and the longer he's out, the more chance he has of escaping, and he's going to run rampant. And because the sad thing about Malivore too is, like, when he eats people, don't forget, like, their people's memories get erased in them. So think about, like, say for example, like, someone you care about, like, gets eaten, like, even if you don't get eaten immediately, which you will, you'll spend the rest of your time not remembering that person you care about. So, because I'm just thinking about it because I'm watching You currently. Now I remember, like, the actress who plays their therapist in season 3, spoilers, sorry, that's the actress who played, because I was like, I thought Vanessa from Daredevil, but I was like, right, now speaking about Legacies, it's like, that's the actress who plays Landon's mom as well, if I remember correctly. That's the same actress. So regardless, it just popped in my mind just now, because obviously, like, his mom is someone who fell victim to I'm curious, that still hasn't come up yet, that he hasn't run into his mom, but I wonder, is that like only a matter of time? Like, she's in there somewhere. She has been for a while, so not less. But I'd assume like he'd maybe just scheduling or whatever, just not. I don't know. I just feel like maybe that's something they'll eventually set up. Like, he has to run into his mom because she's in there somewhere, right? And since he's in here, and runs into her, like, maybe because she was in here, maybe his memory of her will still be gone. But since he's in here too, like, and Malivore's in his body, maybe that'll change things a little bit about, I don't know. Or maybe Malivore's keeping his mom away on purpose. That's what I'm curious about. Maybe I'm overthinking that. But regardless, yeah, it's just kind of a sucky situation, so Hope kind of does understand. But it's just like, right, it's not your problem to deal with anymore. It's on us. Like, you just go live your normal human life, Ryan. But he was like, right, when I was connected to Malivore, you might want to talk to Dr. Saltzman about Landon. And it's like, right, because Landon and Alaric and Caleb did talk. So Malivore was there for that entire conversation. So that's why, like, technically he was connected to Landon's mind by being connected to Malivore's mind. But regardless, aside from that, there's also, the aftermath. Because, you had Caleb trying to push MG to be like, no, it's fine. Like, Lizzie doesn't even care about Ethan that much. It's like, because he's like, oh, I should tell her how I feel. And it's like, and Caleb was like, yeah, but after the movie. And it's like, well, Caleb should have let him go, or at least let MG be the one that rescue Lizzie. But whatever the case may be. I mean, for one, it's like, right, he's like, I ended up being Hope having to save the day. It's like, yeah, but, you know, he's like, all I did was the assist. But Lizzie's like, right, I would tell you, the same thing, like, I know what my dad was saying in this situation. Because it's like, yeah, my dad wasn't here, but you were. And it's, essentially she's trying to make him feel better by being like, you still played your, I'm forgetting what she said exactly. I'm so bummed about it. Like, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was trying to make him feel better. And I think they definitely spent more time together, Caleb and Lizzie, so I think they're definitely becoming more and more friends. And, oh, right, you did what, is most important to him, and it's like making sure that his daughter was okay. That's what it was. So it's like, you did what you were supposed to, and I'm sure my dad would say that that's all he would care about, you know, so. But obviously it doesn't work out, because it's like, right, Lizzie kind of doubles down on, like, Ethan now, because it's like, right, he protected me, so he may not be all this and that, but, you know, she has to kind of lower her expectations, because she has very, like, sky-high expectations, so he might not be able to play guitar, might not be able to play French when we eventually go to Paris, speak French when we eventually go to Paris or something like that. But at the very least, I know what kind of guy is that he would put himself in danger for me, almost getting hurt as a human, but you know. So, I think it is a thing of like, MG just has to wait. Like, I think everything that's meant to be is meant to be. So, I think him and Lizzie ultimately will be. I think it's just a situation of like, her and Ethan let things play out that way, but I think eventually it will become MG's and her time, you know? Hopefully it's not like Caroline and Stefan. God, I was blinking on Stefan's name so hard. Hopefully it's not a Stefan and Caroline situation there, but we'll see. What I mean is, like, you are together, but then, like, tragedy, like, rips you apart from each other again and again. It's just complications ripping you apart from each other again and again and again. Regardless, tangents and all that aside. Obviously, there's the Josie and Fitch situation, where it's a complication of, like, yeah, there's underlining issues there, and that underlining issue is, hey, falling in love with someone who has a ticking clock, and it's like, you should have told me that before we started dating, and it's like, that's a complicated thing, because it is a hard thing to talk about, of like, right, this is my circumstances about the merge and everything, there's a 50-50 shot, I mean, even if she does live, she still has to live with the guilt of like, right, my sister's not alive, so there's no winning when it comes to the merge, you know, it's like, yeah, you might survive, but you still have to live with the guilt of, hey, I might be the one who survives. So, but then there's also a chance she might not, because there's always a conversation of Josie would never do anything to hurt Lizzie, so she'd most likely let Lizzie win. Even though Josie is stronger, Lizzie would probably win just because Josie would not let her lose, just because she would rather, she always puts, like, you know, even though she's making more of an attempt to put herself first, under those circumstances, she would still put Lizzie first, you know, so there's a complicated thing of it. So I don't think it's as 50-50 as she makes it out to be, but, you know, we don't know. Maybe things changing in Josie would even that scale a little bit more. But once again, either way, still no happy ending to it. It still comes, either way, it's kind of a lose-lose situation. But it's almost like someone dating someone who has a terminal illness. It's almost like, it's a comparison of like, yeah, you know, you have like a, you know, sadly, your time is running out. And it's just like, but, you know, it's like, should she have told, like, it's understandable, because it's like going into a situation where there's someone you're falling for, and then it's like, where you're going to tell me I'm going to, like, I can never, like, even if, like, no matter where this goes, I'm already falling for you, and if I fall deeply in love with you, I'm just going to lose you in a couple more years. Like, that is a lot for someone who didn't really sign on knowing that that's what they were signing up for. And so Finch is like, I can't do this, so it seems like they're kind of breaking up, but I don't know, maybe things will change where Finch will be like, you know, regardless of the time we have, like, we got to make the most of it, because we don't, I mean, that's the thing about life. It's Lizzie and Josie's situation is, they have a more, like, this is like a Shinigami Death Note situation of, you know how much time they have left, in comparison to, like, not having Shinigami eyes, not being able to tell, like, how much, like, life someone has left. But the thing is, that can apply to any aspect of life when it comes to love. Like, you never know, like, how much time you or the person you're in love with have on this world. So it's like, you know, if you care so deeply about someone, and even she says, like, oh, someone I love, and Josie was like, wait, did you just say? And she's like, yeah, but not on purpose, because it was like, right, like, the love situation came out because it's like, I think you can interpret that two ways, as in just being like, not on purpose, like it slipped out because this is a complicated situation of like, there should have been a more natural point of me being able to say I love you without it having to be like, right, letting you know because I know that you're going to die eventually. Like, you know, that's, but like I said, it's the thing of like, no one knows how much time they have together. They just know how much time they would potentially have together. So I think that line of thinking might be what shifts Finch's mind around. Maybe like more time at the Salvatore school will eventually like make her realize, like, you know, things can always, you never know how long you have. Sadly, because Ethan is there and he is the person that always helps, the moment Malivore was like, help me please, I was like, oh boy, this is bad. And Ethan tried to do the right thing and he's being threatened, so it's like, let me go or Ethan dies. So they ultimately have to let him go. But obviously Hope's dealing with the fact that not only Caleb, but also Alaric lied to her. And it's like, yes, not only did they lie about you, but it's like, you know, I've been trying to make an attempt to be more of a team player, and you guys have been hiding this from me. So like, what's the whole yay team thing? But now, like, Alaric's like, yeah, so he's gone. I had to let him go. Let me tell you the truth about Landon. It's like, well, she already knows, but, you know, it's just going to add more insult to injury. But now he's free, just like Clark was kind of warning about. And obviously he's talking to Ethan. He was like, oh, let me take a ride. And I'm like, I'm curious, like, what he was doing. Like, either, like, doing what he was doing to Clark, putting a monster inside of Ethan, or it seemed more like what he was trying to suggest is, like, taking Ethan for a ride for a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be, like, permanently in Ethan's body right now. Because being in Landon's body gave him the leverage he needed, so why would he ever leave it? Because they'd do it. So not unless he's splitting himself. So not unless there's like going to be like two Malivores out and about. I'm curious to see what that means. Maybe it's just like, oh, I'm putting a monster in you. But it felt more like, oh, let me personally take a ride. So not less. I don't know. We'll ultimately have to see where that ends up taking us. Where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.